Hey guys, tonight we're heading back to the year 1599. Just as the sun dips below the rooftops, lanterns begin to glow, and villagers shuffle home to the lull of creaking gates and clanking shutters. Or at least that's how it should go. But tonight, everything feels wrong. Sleep is no longer welcome here. Not because of ghosts or werewolves or harvest curses, but because someone, somewhere, decided there simply wasn't enough shut-eye to go around. You're standing on a cobbled lane in your nightcap and robe, holding a candlestick and wondering why your eyelids feel illegal. A rooster nearby is still awake. That feels ominous. And then you see the sign nailed to the inn wall. Sleeping hours restricted until further notice. Compliance mandatory. No napping. Yep, it's real. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. I love knowing which part of the world you're trying to fall asleep in. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You quickly learn that the great sleep shortage isn't a metaphor. It's an administrative nightmare with real consequences. It began with a grain miscalculation, somehow led to candle rationing, and spiraled into a full-blown crisis when someone suggested that people were wasting hours in unconscious luxury. That phrase alone was enough to trigger Parliament's emergency assembly. You're no longer allowed to sleep after dusk unless scheduled by your local watch steward. That's right. You need permission to close your eyes. And tonight, you're not on the list. You're supposed to stay lightly alert until 2:15 a.m., when your assigned sleep allotment begins. A generous 19 minutes, if you're lucky. It's posted on your door, along with a small wax seal and a checklist titled Signs of Compliant Wakefulness. Your neighbor, old Gerwin, is already doing laps around his house with a candle on his head. That's how he proves he's not dozing. You try to stay awake. You really do. You recite multiplication tables. You whistle a bit. You chew a piece of dried turnip like it's gum. But your eyes keep betraying you, fluttering closed for micro moments. Dangerous ones. The kind that might summon a wake warden. And then you hear it. The chime. 2 soft knocks. You freeze. It's your front door. You weren't expecting anyone. That's the point. No one is. You open their door just enough to peek. A man stands outside, cloaked in gray with a feather quill behind one ear and a lantern held high. Inspection, he says flatly. You nod slowly. Try not to blink too luxuriously. He enters, looks around, and immediately checks your bed. No pillow fluffing. No creased sheets. He nods. Acceptable. Then he turns to you. Let me see your eyes. You widen them, forcefully. He hums as though considering a melon. Pupils, average. Lid, not twitching, slight haze. You try to clarify that you've just been reading. He tilts his head. Reading what, citizen? You panic. Sleep prevention, a civic manual. He nods, pulls out a small slate, writes something down. Then, without another word, he turns and vanishes into the night like a bureaucratic ghost. You exhale. You are not fined yet, but you are very, very awake now. And the worst part, this is normal. Ever since the Grand Council of Wakefulness voted 11-4 in favor of redistributed rest protocols, everything has changed. Sleep is no longer private. It's public, regulated, watched. The Sleep Council issues monthly dream quotas. You are no longer allowed to dream about floating, honey, or castles with more than 5 turrets. Too indulgent. Your mattress must be firm enough to discourage drifting, but soft enough to prevent rebellion. Candles are required in every room at night, not for light, but to make sure you look awake from the street. You see a neighbor flick his eyelid open and close for a solid minute. A common exercise now called wake blinking. People practice wake blinking. This is the world you live in. And tonight, you're already behind. Because a rooster crowed too early, because your allotment was trimmed due to excessive face relaxation, because you said the word nap too wistfully at market. Historians still argue whether the great sleep shortage was caused by actual overpopulation, harvest superstition, or just an unlucky sequence of moon phases. But the result? Nobody trusts the dark anymore. Nobody dreams too hard. And nobody sleeps for free. You try not to yawn. You really, truly try. But your jaw has ideas of its own. And before you know it, your mouth is stretching open in that slow, soul-releasing motion only the truly tired understand. It's not even a full yawn. More of a polite inhale with the suggestion of despair. But it's too late. The baker's apprentice sees it. She's carrying a basket of semi-burnt rye and glares at you like you just insulted her yeast. A second later, a street crier rings his tiny silver bell and shouts, "Yawner on Goose Lane!" You freeze, crumbs still on your tongue. A moment later, two children point. One makes the shape of a drooping eyelid with their hand. It's a gesture now, recognized, official, devastating. You try to pretend it was something else, a song, a gasp, a distant sneeze. But the watch steward rounds the corner, clipboard in hand, nose already wrinkling like he can smell drowsiness from 10 feet away. He approaches slowly, like someone about to arrest a sleepy raccoon. "What did we just do, citizen?" "I inhaled," you offer. "Was it productive?" You blink. "What? Was the inhale purposeful or was it reflexive?" You hesitate. He scribbles something onto his slate and mutters, "Reflexive, dangerous, concerning." He issues a soft paper warning. You're handed a pamphlet titled "Fatigue, a Moral Failing." It's illustrated with line drawings of listless peasants collapsing under hay bales and one extremely judgmental goat. You're told to attend a wakefulness workshop at the town hall. You're also gently encouraged to purchase one of the new anti-yawn scarves. They're made from stiff wool and scented with vinegar, meant to keep the jaw compressed and dignity intact. You put it on. It itches, it tightens, but it keeps the yawns at bay. For now. You shuffle back down the road, resisting the urge to tilt your head or blink too slowly. In 1599, those are suspicious acts. You pass a man standing perfectly upright under a bell post. He is wearing 12 tiny bells sewn into his vest. Every time he tilts, they chime. He nods at you solemnly. "I'm freelance enforcement," he says. "Unpaid." You nod back. You do not yawn. The tension in your neck is becoming a personality. When you reach the public square, a new notice is being nailed to the bulletin board. It's printed on wax paper, already curling at the corners. The following behaviors are now classified as pre-slumber signs, Tier 2. Window gazing, prolonged silence, wistful humming, leaning against barrels, saying the word pillow. You quickly turn away, hoping no one heard your internal monologue whisper the word just now. A small boy is being escorted away by two watch stewards. He was reportedly seen sighing with visible comfort. It's unclear what that even means. One steward holds up a drawing of the incident. The boy's eyes are half closed, and his mouth is shaped like an "ah" evidence. You dare not sigh. Instead, you head toward the marketplace. You need to look busy, alert, upright, like someone who not only doesn't want to sleep, but actively despises the very concept. You fake a stretch. Not the relaxing kind. The type that says, I'm energized, not sleepy. I'm thriving. People glance at you approvingly. You're getting better at this. Then someone nearby coughs and whispers, tea. You perk up. Tea is legal now, but regulated. You follow the voice to a back stall where a merchant is pouring steaming black tea into tiny ceramic cups labeled Bureau Approved. You order one. It's bitter, bracing, tastes like soot and ambition. You down it fast. The merchant nods. You earn a stamp on your hand of compliance, a small inky owl with eyes wide open, a symbol of official wakefulness. You're told to flash it if questioned in the next 2 hours. You try to relax. You sit on the edge of a cart, just the edge, no reclining, and observe the world. People walking in sync, eyes wide, jawlines tight, like a town of mannequins afraid to blink. Historians still argue whether this level of public compliance was genuine fear or masterful theater. Did people truly believe the sleepless mandate would protect the kingdom? Or were they just too exhausted to resist? Either way, it worked, at least for now, because by mid-afternoon, you see it happen. A merchant, middle-aged, stiff-vested, stumbles. Just a small wobble, then a tilt, and then a yawn. Not a big one, but it echoes, and the whole square stops. The sound of a yawn, just one, shouldn't silence a marketplace, but it does. It lingers, somehow sticky, the way a sneeze would in a tomb, or the word debt at a family dinner. Heads turn, slowly, stalls quiet. Even the goat near the cabbage crate seems mildly offended. The merchant who committed the crime, the yawner, realizes too late that he's made history. His eyes widen, his mouth snaps shut, but the damage has bloomed like mold in the corner of a bread box. A bell rings, not the usual warning bell, not the tidy tin of mild social violations. This one is deeper, sadder, wet-sounding. The bell of pillow permits and blanket bonds. You feel it before you hear it. A ripple through the crowd, an understanding. 2 watch stewards materialize from behind the sausage stall. One wears a sash that reads Deputy of Down. The other has a clipboard shaped like a feather. They approach with funereal grace. Citizen, the sash one intones, do you possess a valid blanket bond? The merchant stammers. I didn't mean to. I was inhaling for flavor. Intentional exhale with vocalization. Clipboard murmurs, scribbling furiously. Level foo fatigue implication. The merchant's wife rushes forward. He's just tired. He stayed up all night counting lentils for the tax census. That was the wrong defense. Voluntary wakefulness for personal gain, clipboard adds. Suspicious. Possibly hoarding REM. The merchant is asked to present his pillow permit. He has none. Few do. They're issued in extremely limited quantities, mostly to midwives, town criers, and the Queen's Corgi handlers. His fate is sealed. His mattress will be quarantined. His blanket, if found, restituted to the linen vaults. And he'll be issued a sleep reduction token, which ensures his next rest cycle is forcibly shortened via noisy rooster deployment. You watch it unfold, and silently check your own paperwork. Your pillow permit is expired. Your blanket bond is unsigned. You quietly remove the feather from your hat, just in case it's mistaken for bedding. The merchant is led away muttering, I only blinked too long. No one meets his eyes. The market resumes cautiously, as if sleep is catching, as if comfort itself is a crime. You head home, not to sleep, heavens no, but to rotate your bedding. This is now expected. You must flip your straw pile every 48 hours, or risk accusations of developing reclining ruts, which are considered a gateway to naps. Your home is cold. Your blanket, technically a rug, is rolled up and hung on the wall, labeled decorative only. You stare at it wistfully. Then someone knocks. You open the door to find a woman in formal clerical robes holding a brass tin. "I'm here for your mattress census," she says. "Right, of course. This is part of the mattress census of '99. Every household is now required to declare their bedding, its materials, dimensions, softness score, and intent of use." You let her in. She unrolls a chart that looks like a game board but sounds like legalese. You're asked to point at a scale from firm as moral certainty to soft as treason. You hesitate. You point at middling discomfort. She nods. "Honest," she says. "We like honest." Then she pulls out a small straw from her satchel and jabs it into your mattress like she's checking a pie. It crunches, not too loudly. She seems pleased. Consistent resistance, or she notes, unlikely to cradle. Next, she lifts your only pillow. Smells it. Smells like regret. Good. She scribbles furiously. Finally, she hands you a tiny wax seal stamped with a thistle and the number 2. It indicates your bed has been rated marginally legal. You must display it by your door. You thank her. She smiles. But it doesn't reach her eyes. No one's does anymore. Not since the blanketing. You remember it vaguely, a night when the town was forcibly de-pillowed and all duvets were publicly burned in the square. The smoke smelled like feathers and revolution. Some say it was necessary, others say it was just cold. Historians still argue whether the great sleep shortage began with honest panic or a bureaucratic accident involving a mistranslated word for nap in the royal budget. Either way, comfort became contraband. Now you're expected to rotate, to stand, to blink slowly but not too slowly, to never lie down in public, to never speak the word snuggle. You light a candle, sit on your bedding, not in it, and begin your hourly posture reflection. It's all written in the manual. Page 12. You may fold your legs but not lean. You may sigh but only in 5-syllable phrases. You may hum but in minor keys only. You hum something tuneless. Your knees hurt. Your eyes itch. You check the time. Only 6 more hours until your 13-minute sleep allocation. And even then, you'll need to prove you earned it. By now you've accepted that sleep is no longer a biological need. It's a privilege. And privileges in 1599 must be earned, documented, witnessed, and preferably notarized by a stern monk with bloodshot eyes and a skepticism toward softness. You shuffle into the town square at dusk for your assigned breath assessment. It's not technically sleep-related, but it's adjacent. If you exhale with too much warmth, it's considered a sign of internal drowsing. If you breathe too evenly, possible rehearsal for dreaming. If you sneeze, forget it. That's a full report and 3 days of extra awareness drills. You stand in line between a beekeeper and someone who looks suspiciously like they have napped on purpose in their past life. A man at the front of the queue is having his nostrils measured by calipers. He fails. Too relaxed. When it's your turn, a friar in a mustard yellow robe holds a strip of wool beneath your nose and watches it flutter. Once, twice. Moderately vigilant, he mutters. You pass, barely. As you walk away, he hands you a small pamphlet titled "Breath is the First Betrayal." You're starting a collection. You decide to visit the Insomnia Chapel. It's not a real chapel. It's a stone building painted with murals of open eyes, erected by a guild of monks who believe spiritual enlightenment can only come through prolonged restlessness. Their slogan, "Sleep is forgetting. We remember." Inside there are rows of kneeling mats, no cushions. One monk is plucking at a lute in G minor. Another pours boiling water into tiny ceramic bowls shaped like clocks. This is their ritual. You join them. You kneel uncomfortably. You hum along to the tune of the vigilant psalm. A line catches your ear. "Blessed are the wakeful, for they shall inherit the silence." You try not to cry. That would be hydration loss, punishable under Moisture Ordinance 4B. After the chan, a monk hands you a token. It's shaped like a tiny eye, made of compressed parsley. You're told to chew it if you feel temptation. The bitterness will remind you of your civic duty. You smile weakly and nod. You do not ask what the side effects are. Outside, dusk is deepening. People move faster. Shadows lengthen. And from the rooftops, you hear the bells tolling the third wake cycle. That means it's time for insomnia inspectors and the snore trials. You don't want to go, but you must attend. Everyone does. The trials are held in a damp hall with bad acoustics and worse seating. You sit on a bench that creaks with every blink. In front of you, a woman is weeping silently into a parchment napkin. Her son was convicted of audible dreaming. He murmured the phrase "cloud library" in his sleep, which is now considered a metaphor for sedition. You clutch your knees. A steward bangs a ladle on a copper pot. "Bring forth the next sleeper." Two men drag in a shoemaker. His face is puffy, his eyes rimmed with betrayal. The charge? Unauthorized REM episode? Evidence? A damp pillow and reports of a faint giggle at 2:41 a.m. His defense? "I was just thinking, with my eyes closed." A gasp ripples through the crowd. A dangerous defense. The tribunal of three women, each with buns so tight they seem cranially fused, consults their scrolls. Thinking is permitted, one concedes. But reclining while thinking? That's a gray area. Gray like dreams, adds another. After deliberation, the verdict is read. Suspended comfort, no feather contact for 10 nights. One goose visitation permitted per fortnight. The shoemaker nods, eyes dull. He is escorted out. You feel nauseous, or maybe just sleepy. You aren't sure anymore where one ends and the other begins. A boy behind you whispers, "They caught my uncle sleep laughing. He got downgraded to straw without privileges." You don't turn around. That would signal empathy, and empathy is dangerously close to softness. Instead, you focus on the sign above the tribunal. Consciousness is civility. You memorize it. You plan to recite it silently next time your eyes droop. You make it home without incident, passing 5 sleep stewards, a snore-sniffing hound, and a woman with "wakeful" stitched across her bonnet in thistle thread. You climb into your straw pile. Not into it, really. Onto it. You're allowed to rest the back of your knees, but not your entire spine. That's a privilege reserved for guild members and certified bell ringers. You fold your arms into your wake pose. Palms up, eyes open, breathing shallow. The candle flickers. You hear a neighbor mutter in his sleep, "Marzipan angels." You tense. Another tribunal begins tomorrow. You're summoned before dawn. Not dramatically, not with torches or drums, but with a single knock on wood and the gentle hiss of parchment sliding beneath your door. That's how it starts. You blink blearily and unfold the notice. It reads, "Summons to the snore trials. Section B, alleged pre-dream vocalization." Below it, in tinier script, "Please arrive upright." You sigh, which unfortunately now counts as an infraction if done with eyes closed. You open them wide and stretch your jaw in what you hope looks like a triumphant clench. You dress quickly, nothing with folds. Fabric creases are often mistaken for pillow marks. Your belt is too tight but necessary. Loose clothing implies comfort, which implies recklessness. You tie a vigilance ribbon around your wrist, embroidered with the words, "I am awake, therefore I am good." The tribunal hall is already full when you arrive. Some came early just to be seen arriving early. That's a new tactic, preemptive presence, where you show up before you're told to. Very in vogue. Your name is called. You walk to the center of the chamber and stand on the snoring mat, a square of coarse burlap placed beneath the echo funnel. Anything you say will be recorded and analyzed for tones of drowsiness. A woman with a quill-thin nose addresses you from behind her trifold ledger. "Citizen, you were heard to murmur, 'blanket' at 3:08 a.m. Can you confirm or deny?" You blink. "I don't remember." She raises a brow. "Convenient." A second official leans forward. "Did you perhaps say banquet? We're willing to entertain that." You think fast. "Yes, banquet. I was dreaming of not sleeping at a banquet." There's a pause, then a slow nod. "A patriotic fantasy." They mark something on the parchment. You're handed a warning, 3 faint lines pressed into beeswax. If you earn a fourth, you lose your standing privileges. That means sitting, but no one wants to sit. Sitting too long implies the beginning of reclining. You bow slightly. Too much of a bow would resemble exhaustion. You're dismissed. On your way out, a woman whispers, "The mayor's son got caught hugging a bolster." You pretend not to hear. You head toward the town bakery, not for food. Eating flour-based objects is now discouraged, as it encourages warmth and roundness, but to buy a crumb of alertness. It's a biscuit. It tastes like cinnamon and guilt. You nibble it on a bench, sitting bolt upright like a sentry carved from rye. A pamphlet flutters by your foot. You pick it up. "Sedition by Slumber: How to Report Dreamers Before They Dream." Illustrated with a woodcut of a man smiling in his sleep while monarchs collapse. You sigh, this time with your mouth open and eyes wide. That's allowed. The town crier appears near the well and reads aloud a list of recently confiscated items. 14 unauthorized mattresses, noise for a year. 23 contraband quilts, 6 lullabies written in treble clef, 1 suspiciously soft onion. You glance sideways at the baker, who shrugs. "It was a soft onion," he says. "A donkey braise." The sky is fully lit now, which means you've officially completed your mandatory morning wake cycle. You're legally allowed 1 moment of stillness, but only under supervision. You head to the stillness kiosk, where 2 clerks supervise a bench. You sit. "Duration?" one asks. 28 seconds, you reply. They nod. You close your eyes, briefly, but not long enough for comfort. Just long enough to remember that you are tired. So very, very tired. You walk home like a marionette half-fired. On your doorstep, another notice awaits. Reminder, your betting has not yet been publicly declared. Right. The Betting Declaration Act, passed during last winter's nap panic, requires all citizens to submit a formal list of sleep surfaces, including height, origin, and potential softness quotient. Even heirloom quilts count. You head to the local declaration center. It's housed in a former candleworks, now converted into rows of quills and forms and unflattering glances. A clerk with precisely trimmed eyebrows greets you. "Name?" You tell them. "Straw type?" "Mostly oat." "Crinkle noise index?" "Medium startles chickens but not goats." They nod. "Acceptable." You're handed a green ribbon that reads "Vigilance Verified" and told to tie it to your bedpost. It will notify stewards that your bedding has passed, but must still remain unoccupied during daylight. On your way out, you hear someone behind you whisper, "My quilt's gone. It was taken last night." You pause, but do not turn, because even empathy now walks a fine line. Historically, there are debates about what actually caused the great bedding crackdowns. Some blame the textile guilds. Others claim a rogue tailor sewed an illegal feather pouch and accidentally invented sleep envy. But one thing is certain, no one trusts anything padded anymore. You adjust the ribbon on your wrist. You practice standing. Because in this world, fatigue isn't failure, it's treason. You've never feared clergy before. That is, until the Church of Wakefulness installed bells inside its pews. It began modestly, as most strange things do. A few sermons about discipline, some parables about vigilance, one cautionary tale where a shepherd falls asleep and wakes up to find all his sheep have taken the pulpit. You thought it was metaphor. It wasn't. Now church benches have been fitted with alertness chimes, small brass bells that ring if your head tilts more than 20 degrees. The floorboards creak on purpose, designed to amplify fidgeting. And the hymns? All in triple meter, impossible to sway to without full muscular effort. This morning, you find yourself attending the Vigil Mass. It's compulsory, like flour rations and doubt. The priest wears robes embroidered with open eyes and blinking patterns. His mitre bears a stitched banner. God is awake, so should you be. You stand, kneel, each motion precise, choreographed, suspicious of slouching. Halfway through the sermon, someone behind you stifles a yawn. The bells on their bench jingle like heresy. Heads whip around. A nun holding a feather quill staff makes a notation in a parchment scroll. You try not to breathe too deeply. The sermon continues. Verily I say unto thee, the slothful dreamer shall not inherit the linen. Amen. After Mass, you're pulled aside by a young friar named Tib. He speaks in a whisper so sharp it could prune hedges. I saw you blink slowly during the fourth verse. It was the incense, you lie. He nods suspiciously. Incense makes some people hallucinate rest. That's why it's restricted now. You didn't know that. You do now. Outside the chapel, townsfolk gather around the bulletin board to see the newly published list of acceptable midday behaviors. It includes whittling, very fast embroidery, silent staring, if upright, standing beneath eaves and thinking stern thoughts. You choose silent staring. It's the least exhausting. You position yourself near the baker's stall and stare firmly at a loaf. The loaf stares back. Then someone taps your shoulder. It's a child. She holds out a small tin cup. Would you like a sip of public coffee? You nod. She pours a thimbleful of steaming black liquid into a wooden spoon. It smells like overcooked ambition and underfunded rebellion. You sip, your eyes jolt, your toes curl slightly. Don't smile, the child whispers. Smiling suggests joy. Joy implies softness. Softness leads to cushions. She's right. She vanishes. Historians still argue whether clergy-led enforcement was ever officially sanctioned by the Crown. Some say it began as a devotional alertness movement and spiraled from there. Others claim the Queen simply hated naps. Regardless, the churches became tools, and the tools became laws. Back home, you find a scroll nailed to your door. Mandatory night walk schedule. It lists your route, your turn-by-turn steps, and a reminder that wandering while drowsy is prohibited, but wandering with purpose is worship. You're expected to walk from your front step to the old windmill, then back again. That's 4 circuits, no pauses, and 1 declaration of wakefulness per lap. You lace your boots and begin. The road is dim, the moon glares with judgment. Other night walkers pass you, each repeating their assigned mantras. I am alert, I am aware, I am irrelevant to beds. No pillow shall tempt me. Down with down. You try yours. The eyes of my ancestors are wide. It feels silly, then tragic, then holy. Near the windmill, a steward hands you a wakefulness token. It's a small carved bead made of compressed oats. You're meant to carry it in your cheek like discipline. You do, it tastes like guilt. As you round your third lap, a rooster crows. Someone gasps. Unscheduled poultry noise. A boy is caught yawning near the fence. A fine is issued. A sheep sneezes. The windmill spins once. You're unsure if you're dreaming, but if you are, you'll be fined. So you clench your jaw and declare, I am vertical by choice. You finish your final lap, knees aching, brain buzzing, every bone a bit more suspicious of your motives. At home, you unwrap your bed ribbon and fluff your straw exactly twice. Any more would be indulgent. You place your alert beat beside your head and close your eyes just enough to qualify as blinking with pause. The candle burns low. Outside, a steward passes. You exhale softly. Then you hear it, the sound of someone snoring, a single delicate rising and falling note of unpermitted joy. Your eyes snap open. Whoever it is, they're brave. Or doomed. You're not supposed to investigate the snoring. Snoring, after all, is like treason. It's contagious. One citizen breathes too freely in their sleep, and before you know it, a whole district is dreaming of meadows and foot massages. But curiosity is dangerous, and you've always had an inconvenient amount of it. So you creep toward the sound. It's faint but rhythmic, like a lullaby hummed by a revolution. A hush hiss of breath echoing through the alley just beyond your door. You tiptoe carefully, shoes barely scuffing the stones, because even well-intentioned footsteps can imply clandestine intentions. You peek around the corner. There, beneath a sagging tapestry of Queen Maud's fifth decree, is an old man completely reclined, back to brick wall, head slumped, hat tipped, sleeping, openly, brazenly. You gasp, but only inside your throat. You know this man, everyone does. Old Paris, the beekeeper who once wore shoes made of wax and claimed they helped with his ankles. He's notorious, not for rebellion, not even for stubbornness, but for snoring in harmony. Once, during last spring's rest audit, he reportedly harmonized in C major with a passing lute band while unconscious. That earned him 3 weeks of stand-only privileges and a ban on legumes. And yet here he is, dreaming softly, publicly. You glance around. No stewards yet. Paris murmurs something in his sleep. Feathered bed and apricots. You almost weep. Because those two things, comfort and sweetness, have become forbidden longings. You haven't seen an apricot since the jam rationing of '98, and your last encounter with feathers ended in mandatory plucking education. You crouch beside him. Do you wake him? Do you report him? Do you sit very, very still and share in the ripple of outlawed stillness? You almost do, but then a twig snaps behind you. You turn, too fast, too loud. A young steward stands there, not much older than a teenager. His uniform still creases at the elbows, which is an internal offense in the enforcement code. He looks at you, then at Paris, and for a moment, the air becomes electric with the potential of choice. The steward says nothing. Then he does the unthinkable. He closes his own eyes for just a second and walks away. No citation, no horn blast, no sleep siren. You exhale deeply, quietly, illegally. Back in your home, you begin to wonder, could the rules be cracking? Tiny leaks in the dam of sleeplessness. You pace, unable to rest. Not because it's illegal, but because hope is more disorienting than exhaustion. You remember your friend Eloise, exiled last year after being caught knitting a quilt without a license. Her trial had been brief but theatrical. She defended herself with a sock puppet. It didn't help. You wonder where she is now. And then you remember the rumor. The Feather Underground. Whispers only. Hints passed between fingers during sanctioned handshakes. A secret network of ex-nappers, sleep sympathizers, and rogue herbalists with chamomile dreams. They say the Feather Underground hides in barns, cellars, behind spice racks labeled oregano. They smuggle quilts wrapped in turnip sacks, trade honey for lullabies, pass notes stitched into pillowcases. They have a sign, a stitched thimble with a feather inside. You've never seen it, but tonight you dare to hope. The next morning you pretend to oversleep. You lay still past your assigned wake bell, daring the ceiling to collapse. Nothing happens. But when you rise, there's a note tucked in your doorframe. The handwriting is crooked but urgent. You snored last night. Good. Meet at the well after moonrise. Bring nothing soft. You hide the note in a drawer of decoy spices. Basil, dust, guilt. All day, you perform your wakefulness like it's theater. You frown at clouds. You march to the well and back for no reason. You sip tea so bitter it gives you a moral dilemma, and when night falls, you go. You walk slowly to the well, breath held like it might give you away. No one is there, until suddenly someone is. A woman in gray robes, face shadowed, voice low. "Do you remember what dreams smell like?" she asks. You nod. She hands you something wrapped in oilcloth. You open it. It's a single feather, downy, silken, real. Your eyes well with treason. She smiles. You're not alone. You spend the next day acting very, very awake. You whistle too cheerfully, march like your knees are judgmental, and squint at everyone like you're internally filing reports on their spine alignment. It's exhausting, but necessary, because tucked inside your boot, folded in a patch of linen that once served as a bread towel, is a feather. Not a drawing of a feather, not a metaphoric feather used in civic poetry about lightness and restraint. A real one. It has weight, warmth, a dangerous softness that could get you publicly interrogated by the anti-drowsing choir. Those velvet-cloaked sopranos who roam the streets singing upbeat madrigals to keep people jarringly alert. You pass one of them now. She sings a minor key ballad titled Woe to the Pillowed. You nod politely. Your temples pulse with fatigue and secrecy. You keep walking. The rendezvous point is an herb stall, innocuous enough with labeled jars of anti-slump fennel and discipline mint. But beneath the bunches of dried thistle, there's a tiny sigil stitched onto the canvas, a thimble with a single curl of thread. You cough once, then twice, pause. A hand pulls back the curtain. You're beckoned inside. The smell is immediate. Chamomile, lavender, and something much older. Something floral that no longer has a civic name. Comfort. Inside are 5 others. A circle of the weary. A man in postal robes whose eyebrows twitch with repressed sighs. A mother balancing a sleeping toddler in a satchel labeled tax receipts. And an older woman you swear you've seen working in the no-blink butchery on Brick Lane. They look at you with a mix of compassion and vigilance. You're the new one, says a man whose eyes look like they remember warmth. You nod. Feather confirmed? He asks. You nod again, slipping it from your boot like contraband poetry. He inspects it, nods solemnly, then returns it carefully, as though passing back a relic. We're planning a nap in. The words hang in the air like cinnamon steam. You blink. A what? A coordinated reclining, someone says, eyes glowing. Simultaneous, 15 citizens. 2 full minutes, no standing. You nearly faint. But won't they hear us? They always hear, the butcher murmurs. But they're tired too. You stay quiet. They explain more. The plan. At the next monthly stretching festival, while the town is distracted by public lunges and civic lung rotations, the Feather Underground will gather behind the cider press, formerly the Ministry of Waking Drinks. They will sit. They will recline. They will rest, even if just for 90 seconds, even if only one eye is closed, even if it costs them everything. Sleep, says the toddler's mother, is sacred. Someone else nods. It's not weakness, it's memory. Without it, we forget who we were. You feel your throat tighten. Because they're right. And because, quietly, you already said yes the moment you let your body remember what a feather felt like. You leave with a stitched badge tucked discreetly under your sash. It's tiny, barely visible, but it marks you now. Featherfolk. You walk home carefully, alertly, officially on your best posture. At your door, another scroll awaits. Notice of looming audit. Please prepare your night reflection log. You groan, but only internally, because tonight, you'll need to fabricate an entire record of approved wakeful thoughts between 10 hours and 4 hours a.m. You open your logbook. Under approved topics, you write cloud logistics, brick maintenance forecasts, the political neutrality of goats, bread, is it too soft? You fill 4 pages in cramped, judgment-proof script. Then you unroll your rug and lie flat. Only metaphorically, of course. You assume the wakening position, ankles crossed, arms crossed harder. The candle flickers. You try to breathe without rhythm. But inside, the feather in your boot warms your thoughts. You remember dreams, ones you weren't supposed to have, of curling beside a fire, of the hush of snowfall on rooftops, of someone whispering, "It's okay, you can close your eyes." And for the first time in months, you almost do. But you catch yourself. Not yet. The nap-in is only 3 days away. You must remain alert. You must hold the line between rebellion and responsibility. Because if you fall asleep now, alone, they win. But if you wait, you just might fall asleep together. The day before the nap-in arrives with suspicious enthusiasm. Trumpets play brighter. Stewards strut faster. A new decree is announced in the town square. All citizens are to participate in tomorrow's stretching festival with visible gratitude and audible intent. You're not exactly sure what audible intent sounds like, but you assume it involves grunts of civic pride. You practice 3 types before breakfast, one guttural, one hopeful, and one that sounds vaguely like a sheep resolving to stay awake. You pass the bakery. The baker nods. He places a tiny cinnamon swirl on the edge of his cart and taps the crust. Twice. That's code. It means, "Still on?" You respond by sneezing. That's not part of the code. But he seems to understand. Back home, you prepare your festival garments. Scratchy breeches, a jerkin that resists folding, and a sash labeled tense and present. You also tuck your underground badge beneath your collar, the thimble with the feather inside. Still barely visible, still somehow heavy. You try not to let your thoughts wander into comfort. You fail. You think about chairs. Not stools, not benches, real chairs. Ones with backs, maybe even cushions. The kind that make you sigh unintentionally. You think about leaning into one without fear of documentation. And then you shake your head, literally twice. Because according to Behavioral Alertness Rule 14b, 1 shake shucks self-correction, 2 shook repentance. Anything more is theatrical and may require a permit. You eat a spoonful of vinegar oats and rehearse your alibi. Because if the napkin fails, everyone will be questioned. Your plan is this. I was tying my shoes and briefly remembered how it felt to love. It's vague, poetic, legally slippery. You think it might work. Evening arrives. You lie on your assigned slab and reread your declaration of uprightness. It includes the affirmation that your mattress is emotionally platonic, a promise not to dream of liquids, blankets, or hope, an oath to blink evenly, even during thunder. You sign it with shaking hands. Somewhere outside, a hound barks twice. That's the curfew bell. You blow out your candle and sit in the dark. Then softly there's a knock. A single rap, then silence, then two more. It's time. You pull on your jerkin, slip your badge back into place, and open the door to find three others. Posture perfect, expressions neutral. No one speaks. They never do. Words at this hour imply bedtime stories. You march to the cider press under cover of communal moonlight. The stretching festival has begun. Across the square, townsfolk bend and twist in synchronized discomfort. It's supposed to vent the spine. In reality, it's just a legally enforced form of suffering yoga. You pass the herbalist, who holds up a sprig of thyme and winks. It smells like rebellion. Behind the cider press, 13 others wait. No one looks directly at each other. That would be familiarity, but they nod in barely perceptible rhythms. Old Paris is there, still humming dream chords under his breath. The butcher's apprentice wears an apron embroidered with meat and wakefulness. The toddler's mother has left the satchel at home, but her eyes are more determined than ever. A steward passes nearby. You all freeze mid-motion, pretending to stretch. Then it happens. The signal. Someone drops a spoon. You recognize it. The sound is unmistakable. Pewter, not tin. It clangs against cobblestone like a starting bell for a dream race. And all at once, you sit, together, then recline. Together, you feel the ground beneath you, cold, honest, glorious. You close your eyes. For 3 seconds. 5, 9, 12. It's more than anyone's dared in months. And in that stillness, you hear something you haven't heard since the declarations began. A giggle. A real one, not ironic, not out of fear, but joy. It bubbles from someone's chest and escapes like a moth from a stitched pocket. And suddenly, others laugh too. Quietly, carelessly. For 37 seconds, the town forgets the rules. You dream with your eyes open. Then the whistle blows. Hard, shrill, immediate. The stewards have arrived. Voices shout. Unauthorized horizontality. Recline breach. Pillow intention suspected. Everyone bolts. Not far, just enough to scatter the evidence. To pretend nothing happened, some stretch dramatically. Others dive into carts of turnips and claim it was route inspection. You stagger to your feet, brushing off straw and hope. One steward grabs your shoulder. What were you doing? You blink. Tying my shoe. He stares at you. You stare back. Then he sighs. Long, loud, accidentally vulnerable. Say whim. He lets you go. You walk away. Not arrested, not safe, but changed. You had 15 seconds of rebellion under the moon. You remember the softness of the earth, the warmth of others breathing nearby, the wild ancient truth that rest is not treason. And now, even if the laws hold, so do you. The next morning, the town is humming with official denial. The mayor releases a parchment titled Stretching Success, a community's wakeful triumph. It features diagrams of allegedly optimal lunges and includes an illustration of a citizen yawning in reverse. No one mentions the incident. No one needs to. Every cart, every stall, Every cobblestone step seems to vibrate with the memory of what happened behind the cider press, the unsanctioned recline, the group exhale, the synchronized sigh of people remembering their own softness. But then come the consequences. You wake to find a new notice on your door. Mandatory pillow census reopened due to suspicious flatness. You unfold the scroll. Your name is bolded. Your straw pile is now under suspicion for bearing temporary indentations inconsistent with approved standing rest. You try not to panic, which is difficult because panic is an emotion, and emotional variance now requires a permit. You go outside. Posters have appeared overnight. They show a pair of closed eyes surrounded by barbed lines. Above the caption, "If you nap, who guards the kingdom?" You tear one down. Discreetly, at the bakery, the baker doesn't speak. He hands you a roll that's mostly crust. It has the faintest impression of a feather scored into the bottom. Your fingers tremble as you take it. He nods once and then resumes pretending the bread is bland. On the way back, you pass a steward in conversation with a choir boy. The boy's lute is broken, too many lullabies. The steward whispers, "Replace the strings with twine. Call them awake chords. New law next week." You keep walking, but then you notice something strange. People are blinking. Not quick blinks, not utility blinks. Lingering, luxurious, meaningful blinks. The kind you used to do after reading poetry or finishing a good stew. The kind that make you question gravity. It's a signal. You blink back. Someone smiles, a dangerous act. You try to smile too, but your face muscles feel dusty from disuse. At home, you unpack the scrolls from the underground. You've been given a task, spread the method, a secret way to reclaim rest without immediate detection. It involves a posture called the perch. You sit at a stool, but only just. Knees bent, spine curved to imply readiness. You close your eyes halfway, stare at a crack in the wall, and breathe in fives. 5 counts in, 5 out. It looks like contemplation, feels like defiance. You practice. You get good at it. Soon you're seeing others do it. At the tannery, in the chapel, at the chicken weigh-ins, people leaning ever so slightly more than before, heads tilting like they've remembered the concept of a shoulder. Then comes a blow, a new decree, all unregistered yawns to be taxed at market rate. The fine 2 pence per second of mouth exposure. You hear about a woman fined 14 pence after forgetting to cover her third yawn during a sermon. She now wears a muzzle made of radish string and shame. The underground meets that night, in a hayloft behind the seamstress's workshop. There's barely space to sit, but you all do anyway. You speak in whispers. Even breathing has rhythm now. The toddler's mother presents a chart. It shows zones of suspicion. Red zones include bakeries, barbers, and benches. Yellow zones include alleys, soup lines, and confessionals. Green zones are nearly gone. Someone asks, "What's the goal now?" Someone else replies, "To remember what real sleep feels like." You raise your hand and say it. Not just naps, not just reclining. I mean real sleep, pillows, blankets, dreams. A hush. Old Paris begins to cry. He's been holding it in since the cider press. You all nod, together, carefully. It's not much, but it's agreement. And that's dangerous. Because coordinated thought often precedes coordinated action. The first step toward revolution isn't shouting, it's sighing in the same direction. Back at your hut, you rearrange your straw just enough to provoke suspicion. You want them to come. You're ready. Sure enough, at dawn, a steward knocks. "Straw irregularity report," he grunts. You let him in. He sniffs the air, taps your wall. Then he sees your vigilance ribbon. It's torn. You shrug. It caught on a dream. He raises an eyebrow. Then miraculously he lets it go. Leaves you standing there with your tattered ribbon, your heart pounding, and your thoughts swimming in the idea that something is starting to shift. The next day, your neighbor ties a blue thread around her wrist. Not regulation, not from any guild. A message. You blink slowly and reply. At first, it's just a thread. Then it's everywhere. Blue thread around wrists. Green string tied to buttons. A feather stitched into a sleeve hem. A beat carved into the shape of a yawn and hung from a butcher's hook. Symbols that used to mean nothing now mean one thing. We remember rest. And the stewards? They notice, but they don't act, at least not immediately. Because what do you do with a whisper? You can't find someone for how they tie their apron. You can't confiscate a sigh if it's technically a respiratory adjustment. So they write things down. They pass parchment. They tighten patrol routes. But they don't stop the thread. Because now it's spreading too fast. At the granary, someone drops a flour sack in the shape of a pillow. People laugh, but too briefly to be punished. At the market, a vendor sells turnips labeled "Guaranteed Dreamless." No one believes it. Everyone buys them. Even the goat census clerk, a man famous for owning 12 straight-legged cloaks, has begun humming lullaby rhythms as he counts livestock. You don't know what's happening. Correction, you know exactly what's happening. It's becoming normal again. Not to sleep, not yet, but to miss sleep openly. And missing is the first step toward wanting. And wanting is the first crack in the wall. Still, the regime pushes back. A new edict is announced. In response to recent behavioral irregularities, all citizens must now perform a wakefulness exercise at mid-morning. Duration, 3 minutes. Style, interpretive. Interpretive, which is horrifying. You now have to choose how to flail convincingly without implying relaxation or rebellion. You settle on a series of wide-eyed arm flaps and forced clapping. You call it the alert chicken. It catches on. By the third day, half the town is doing some version of it. The stewards look confused, but no one's technically breaking a law. Meanwhile, the Feather Underground begins its boldest act yet. Operation Blanket Drop. At midnight, small cloth bundles appear around town, hidden in firewood stacks, dropped from second-story windows, smuggled in hay carts. Inside each, a square of quilt. Nothing scandalous, just 6 inches by 6. But real. Soft. Patterned in defiance. Some with stars. Some with stitched phrases like, "Remember softness," or "This isn't a crime yet." Yours arrives folded inside a loaf of bread. The baker gives you no eye contact. Just places the loaf in your hand, mumbles something about crust integrity, and walks away. You open it at home. It's blue. It smells faintly of lavender. You cry. Not loud, not long. But tears fall into your lap like reminders that you are still a person and not just a standing statistic. You sleep with it under your hand. Not on it, not wrapped in it. That would be madness. Just touching it. A whisper of rest, a fingertip of rebellion. And the dream? Oh, the dream. You're in a giant chair. Padded, velvet. There's a pillow taller than a goat and twice as forgiving. You're drinking tea made of starlight and chamomile. A dog is there, possibly 3. They all blink in sync. You wake up to the sound of scratching. At your door, another scroll. But this one's different. The paper is thicker. The ink smells like nutmeg. It reads, "You are summoned. Bring your quilt square." There's no signature, just a stitched feather at the bottom. You dress quickly, shake out your limbs in a half-hearted alert chicken. Outside, the night is still, too still. You follow the map hidden inside the scroll. It leads you to the abandoned bell tower, once used to announce curfew and now hollow with disuse. You knock. The door creaks. And inside, there are dozens of people, not sitting, not standing, lying down, openly, together. Quilt squares arranged like a patchwork of mutiny. They make space for you. You lie beside a woman with a lute strapped to her back. She smiles. Her badge says Snore Level 2, recovered. A boy brings you a thimble of tea and says, "We're calling it Dreamstock." You laugh. You shouldn't. You do. Old Paris hands you a candle. The flame flickers with the same rhythm as your breath. And when the tower bell rings, once, softly, not in alarm, but in acknowledgement, you close your eyes. No penalty, no fines, just breathing. Together, you don't remember falling asleep. And that in itself feels revolutionary. Because for months, maybe years, sleep has been something you performed like a legal obligation. You'd lie flat and recite your civic affirmations. You'd blink precisely 12 times to signal consciousness. And you'd dream, if at all, in sanitized metaphors about grain quotas and fence maintenance. But last night, you slept. Real sleep. The old kind. The kind that arrives like a gift and leaves like a fog. You wake up in the bell tower, still horizontal, still among others. Somehow, miraculously, you're all still intact. No stewards, no inspections, no fines. Just the slow sunrise pouring in through the tower's stained glass window, painting everyone in sleepy gold and dusty violet. A woman in a shawl whispers, "It happened." Someone else replies, "We weren't arrested." Old Paris clears his throat. Yet. Still, the mood is strange, gentle, sacred. It takes a full minute before anyone stands. When they do, it's not abrupt. It's like the stretching of vines. Quiet, creaky, unhurried. You exit the tower in pairs, careful not to look too peaceful. Because today is different. The streets are still. No town criers, no audit bells, no stewards shouting about verticality quotas. In fact, no stewards at all. At first you think it's a trap. But then outside the bakery, you see something that freezes your breath mid-step. A man is reclining on a bench. Not resting, reclining. He has a book in his lap and a pastry in his hand. He isn't flinching, he's just there. Another bench holds a woman braiding her own hair without urgency. Children chase one another in circles without instructor supervision. Then you hear it, the announcement. It's not trumpeted, not shouted, just a scroll posted quietly at every corner of the square. You approach it slowly, read it, then read it again. In accordance with the Crown's new policy of civic rhythmic recovery, all citizens are permitted 2 intervals of rest per solar cycle. Napping is henceforth decriminalized. Dream declarations suspended indefinitely. Feather ownership no longer monitored. You almost collapse. Not from exhaustion, though you're carrying months of it like a rucksack full of fog, but from disbelief. You turn. Others are reading the scrolls. Some smile, some don't know how. One man weeps openly into a radish. The baker, still flour-dusted and squinting, walks up to you. "Looks like we're obsolete," he says. You shrug. "Speak for yourself. I just remembered how to sit cross-legged." He nods, then adds, "Come by later. I'm thinking of inventing pillows." You want to laugh. You want to hug him. You settle for a smile and a respectful blink. Because for the first time in what feels like decades, no one is going to punish you for that. You spend the day cautiously joyful. You nap in your own home, on your own straw pile, with your little quilt square clutched like a relic from a forgotten religion. You dream of geese flying in circles. You dream of soups that sing lullabies. You dream of a steward with a blanket instead of a citation scroll, tucking you in and saying, "Good job." When you wake, the sun is just setting. There's a knock at your door. You flinch, but it's not a steward. It's a child holding a piece of parchment. She hands it to you and runs off. You open it. It reads, "Tonight, the first legal slumber circle. Bell Tower, bring your square. Wear socks." You arrive to find the entire space transformed. Candles flicker in wall sconces. A group of former stewards, now repurposed as sleep guardians, stand at the door offering tea and supportive nods. Someone has brought a mattress. An actual mattress. You stare at it like a comet. "You can touch it," someone says behind you. You do. It's soft. It's real. You lie down again that night among the people who didn't just resist, but remembered. The ones who chose dreams over directives, feather over fear, sleep over surveillance. The bell rings softly at midnight, not to signal wakefulness, not to summon obedience, but simply to say, "You made it. You sleep for 10 hours, maybe 12. No one times it. No one checks your breath volume. You wake up when you wake up." And that alone, feels more profound than any political reform or civic milestone. Because for the first time in recent memory, your dreams weren't something to explain, classify, or justify. They were yours. Private, whole, slightly ridiculous. Last night you dreamed you were a loaf of bread being tucked into a linen napkin while a choir of goats hummed lullabies. You don't understand it. You don't care. It was soft. When you sit up, the tower is already half empty. Some have left to stretch beneath trees. Some stayed curled in sleep, blanket corners twitching gently like leaves in breeze. One woman is spooning a large dog. The dog looks smug. At the edge of the room, a steward, former steward, now rebranded as Civic Recline Liaison, offers you warm porridge and a spoon shaped like a question mark. You take it. "Feels strange," as he says. What does?" "Not measuring anything." You nod. The porridge tastes like vanilla and forgiveness. Outside, the town square is blooming with color. Not flowers, fabrics. Blankets hang from windowsills. Scarves wave from rooftops. A quilt has been spread across the fountain like a tablecloth for a picnic hosted by ghosts of naps past. Even the mayor has changed his hat. It is floppy. It is scandalous. You walk past a bulletin board and find the latest declaration, written in actual cursive. Citizens may now define their own rest. You stare at those words for a long time. People pass behind you, some humming, some reclining on benches designed for sitting, but used for so much more. A child is writing a poem in chalk. It reads, "When I was born, I blinked. They told me not to. Now I blink all the time. No one says anything, except maybe same." You smile. But this new era comes with new questions. How much sleep is too much? Should napping be taught in schools? Can you be too well rested and therefore socially threatening? Historians are already debating the semantics. Some say the great sleep shortage of 1599 never truly ended. It just curled into the walls and yawned until someone listened. Others insist that the rebellion started not with the Feather Underground, not with the cider press, not even with the blanket drop. Reina, but with one yawn, one unrepentant echoing exhale in a sermon or a spoon shop or the tax office. One person saying, "I am tired and I will not pretend otherwise." And maybe they're right. You sit on a stoop beside the baker, who is experimenting with snooze scones. "They're just scones," he says. "But if you eat two, you need a nap." You try one. He's not wrong. Later, a group of children parade down the street holding signs that say nap proud and drowsy but free. They chant slogans like, more dreams, fewer decrees. Our bed's our choice. Feathers up. One small boy wears a cape made of stitched quilt squares. It billows behind him like legend. The former stewards escort the parade, not to monitor but to wave, offer lemonade, and occasionally sit down on the grass. You lie down too. The grass is surprisingly cooperative. Someone plays a lute in the distance. It's out of tune in a comforting way. You place your little blue quilt square over your chest and stare up at the clouds. One looks like a mattress. One looks like a yawn. One looks suspiciously like that one steward who always sneezed twice before fining people. You hope he's sleeping now. You hope everyone is. The town bell rings once softly. Not a command, not a warning, just a suggestion, a reminder that time passes and that you're allowed to spend it however you need. So you close your eyes again because you want to, because you can. You now live in a world where rest is normalized, which is arguably more shocking than when it was outlawed. There are official napping zones. Benches have cushions. Schools offer structured yawn breaks. A new municipal position has been created, Dream Archivist, whose job is to interview citizens about the colors and oddities of their dreams. No judgment, no classification, just curiosity. You've met her. She wears robes the color of twilight and smells faintly of rosemary. Your latest submission was a dream about climbing a staircase made of folded laundry while chased by a goose named Reginald. She nodded sagely and said, common motif. Even your house feels changed. It's not bigger, not warmer, not any cleaner. But now there's a pillow on the windowsill. A legal one. Sun-warmed, square, and defiantly plush. It has become your favorite place to sit, or lean, or, when you're feeling bold, to let your eyes flutter shut for more than 6 seconds. You still wear your underground badge. You don't have to, but you want to. The thimble with the feather inside, it's become a symbol not of secrecy, but of survival. Some folks embroider it onto cuffs. Some carve it into wooden spoons. One woman made a topiary in the shape of it. You water it when she's away. Things aren't perfect. There are debates now, real ones. Some argue sleep is becoming too trendy, that the napfluencers hosting public dozing sessions in the square are exploiting sacred rest culture. Others want rest to be mandatory in shifts and hold town meetings to discuss the ethical limits of unconsciousness. They raise concerns about unsanctioned dream content. The term REM radicalism is thrown around, mostly by people who drink too much wake root tea. But despite the chaos, no one is being fined for blinking. No one is scrubbing walls to avoid suspicion. The Whisper Stewards have been disbanded. One of them now runs a tea shop called Quietly. You went once. There's no menu. Just a short handwritten sign. Tell me how you feel. I'll bring you something hot and soft. You told him, tired but safe. He brought you a mug of something floral that made your shoulders melt. You thanked him. He winked and replied, no charge, that was for past interruptions. Back outside, you watched children play a new game called Steward Says. One shouted, well, Steward says, stand straight. Everyone stood straight. Steward says, clench your jaw. They did. Then close your eyes. Half of them flinched. The other half paused, then giggled. Nope, I didn't say Steward says. And they all collapsed into laughter. You sat nearby, cross-legged on a blanket someone had left like a gift, and realized laughter is the opposite of regulation. So is silence when chosen. So is sleep. A man passed by selling legal pajamas. They come in 7 approved colors and have pockets deep enough to hold shame or snacks. You bought 2 pairs. One for you. One to send to Eloise. Yes, that Eloise, who wrote to say her exile village now has a community nap dome, and that she's teaching goats how to recognize drowsiness in humans. It's going poorly, she wrote, but I've never felt more myself. You frame her letter. Hang it above your straw pile, which is now a mattress. Not a fancy one. Not a nobleman's bed. Just layers of softness stacked like forgiveness. Sometimes you sit at the edge of town, where the wind tastes like baked pears, and you think about all the laws that fell asleep before the people did. You think about the bell tower, the cider press, the bench with the sleepy man and the scandalously floppy hat. You think about your first real nap, how brief it was, how holy. And then, when no one is looking, you close your eyes again. Not to hide, not to rebel, just because it's the most honest thing you can do. There's a word people are using now, softly, reverently, like a psalm hummed beneath the breath. Restoration. Not in the royal sense, not about governments or grand portraits getting cleaned. No, this is personal, intimate, the restoration of naps, of dreams, of the utterly human act of unclenching. You sit in a newly opened dream garden outside the former records hall, which now hosts blanket exchanges and weekly communal snoozes. The grass is padded with thick moss, and pillows shaped like clouds are handed out at the entrance. There's no schedule, no goal, no officials with clipboards. Just hush. A child nearby is drawing in the dirt with a stick, circles, loops, something almost feather-shaped. She looks up and smiles. Your eyes are sleepy, she says, not judgment, just observation. You nod. I think they've been sleepy for a long time. She shrugs. It's okay now. It is. People nap in doorways, in wagons, on each other's shoulders. The mayor delivered his last speech half horizontal. Even the town criers now ring a softer bell and announce, all is well, dream if you'd like. The underground? It's no longer underground. It's just the Feather Society now. They host workshops in quilt making, restful philosophy, and the sociology of bedtime stories. You attend one on resistance through recline. Old Paris teaches it. He begins with, once I snored, and they called me a criminal. Now I snore, and they call me choir. You laugh. The whole room does. Not because it's the punchline to a joke, but because it's true. At the end, they gift you a larger quilt square. You've earned it, someone says. You don't know if they mean you personally or humanity in general. Either way, you clutch it to your chest like it might dissolve. You bring it home. Your home, which now has curtains that aren't made of disciplined linen. You hang your badge beside your bed. You stretch, not for performance, but pleasure. You sip a tea made of things that once got people fined. Rose petals, valerian, the dried edge of a dream. And you lie down. The world doesn't end. No one knocks. No parchment appears at your door. You close your eyes, not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of return. Because the great sleep shortage of 1599 didn't destroy a generation. It paused them, held them in a long, aching, state-mandated yawn. But now, you breathe fully. You take up space, not because it's efficient, but because you need to. And the ceiling, it doesn't record your every exhale anymore. It just waits, the same way a sky waits for clouds. Or a pillow waits for heads. Because in the end, the great fear of rest was never about the danger of dreams. It was about the power of remembering who you are when you aren't performing. And now you remember. You remember how to doze, how to sigh without punishment, how to look at a feather and not feel afraid. So you nestle under your quilt. You blink once, twice, no alarm, and you sleep, not to escape, not to resist, but because it's time. You are no longer holding the line. You are the line, and it runs soft and warm beneath every street, every mattress, every breath, until the whole town, the whole world exhales together. Finally, so now you lie there, quiet and still, a single thread in the soft tapestry of this reawakened town. The windows open at just a crack, enough to let in the hush of leaves shifting gently, like the world is adjusting its pillow. Somewhere, a dog sighs. Somewhere else, a bell rings once. Not a command, just a reminder. You're allowed. Your quilt square, now well worn and warm, rests over your stomach. You've stopped clutching it. You don't need to. It knows its place. Everything is a little slower now. The candlelight pools rather than flickers. Footsteps outside pass like whispered punctuation. There's no list to prepare, no script to recite, no steward hovering with chalk and suspicion. You breathe in deeply. It smells like linen and lavender. The air has weight in the best way, like a blanket laid gently across your thoughts. You roll onto your side. The bed doesn't squeak anymore. Even your memories are tired now, curling into corners, pulling the quilt up to their chin, ready to be quiet for a while. You blink once, the slow blink of someone who no longer has to pretend. Someone who survived. Someone who doesn't need permission to rest anymore. And just before the last flicker of thought slips away, before the tea goes cold, the world hushes completely, and your dreams come soft-footed. You remember one last truth. You were never the problem, just tired. And now? Now you sleep. End of script. Sweet dreams.